Hi everyone, it's Jackie Schomburg-Abstract. Remember a few weeks ago when I was experimenting with oil and cold wax? Well, this is what I made, and I wasn't satisfied leaving it alone, so I decided I would cut it up and continue working on these as four separate pieces. So this video is all about what I did to change things. Since it's already oil paint, I decided to add oil pastels as my main medium for this video. And I had let it sit, I don't know, probably a week or two before I started adding the pastels. So the oil paint underneath is still a bit tacky, but it's not wet anymore. I'm limited in the colors of the pastels that I have here, but I really liked how this bright blue was totally taking focus over everything else, the more subdued colors in the background, and it punched up the color a bit. The thing I really do like about the original piece is the texture that I was able to create in the background. So I thought that was really special, and I wanted to preserve some of that in these now four separate pieces. Just feeling it out as I go along. I'm a bit indecisive as I judge myself, as I watch myself make these again. But I started off a little timid in how much blue I was going to add and kept adding more. At some point I realized that the light blue was making a major impact on these, and maybe I should diversify a bit. So I'm adding some dark blue. It's really more of a cobalt, I suppose. And having the two shades just gives more depth. The blue is basically a mid-range between that light blue and the black that's already in the background. And I like that this is creating a contrast between the texture in the background and the smoothness and the opacity of the pastels. So I'm literally covering up aspects of the background that you can't see through. And replacing it with a smooth, one color flat effect. You knew I was going to put some black and white stripes in there somewhere, right? Just reinforcing some of the reds that were already in the original painting to make sure they stand out and add a little more oomph as needed. The red, especially up in that upper left and upper right, really brings the eye toward itself, especially when it's in that upper left next to the black and white stripes, which are already super high contrast and already a great focal point. Not tooting my own horn there, just uh, a centered focal point where all of the action is where those black and white stripes are, and now the red just doubles down. So adding white because the background, there was very little white in it. Adding white also adds a lot of, I was going to say visual weight. It's not super heavy visual weight, but it just adds visual interest. That's what I'm looking for. And this is a blending stump, so you can see that the pastel is getting more blended in, if that's anything close to proper grammar. But it's getting softer and more uniformly smooth. It's just made of, I think, just rolled up paper. Maybe paper pulp that's shaped like that. So they're very handy to have around if you work with pastels, even soft pastels that are more chalky or charcoal. They're very handy. Or you can use your finger, or you can use your finger wrapped in paper towel. This is a small X-Acto knife. I'm using that just to cut through some of the layers and scratch in there. Obviously not pushing very hard because otherwise it would go right through the paper. This allows some of the under layers to show through and breaks up the larger areas of the flat pastel color, the uniform pastel color, and gives it a little bit more detail. So one of the things I didn't like as much about the full original piece is I loved the texture, but there wasn't uh, enough variety, I suppose. So I'm already liking these better since now I have areas of less texture mixed with the heavy texture of the original piece. And really, the blue and the red, to me, make it look just happier. It's not so, uh, I don't even know what word I would use to describe it, but not so serious. I feel like the initial work is very serious and not fun. There's not a fun in a different way, but not fun, playful fun like I typically enjoy. So adding these bright colors in gives it a bit more playful fun. And you can you see how with the smooth uniform surfaces of the pastel areas, it really lets the texture shine in the other places. Because now you're seeing the contrast between the smooth and the texture, visual texture. So it does a better job pointing you toward the texture than it did before. At least for me, it was hard to figure out where to look in the original. Adding black obviously makes an impression. Anything with a big value change, so lights against darks, will always draw your eye. So the bottom left piece, there's a lot going on in that one, and that's my least favorite right now. Probably the least favorite's the bottom left and the upper right. Sorry, the bottom left and the bottom right. The upper right and the upper left I like a lot. I'm happy that there's enough variety. There's plenty of places to look around. I like the upper left, how the black squares stand out against the blue. In the warmer area to the right with the deep kind of ochre, yellow ochre and red. And the upper right, the black stripes with the red scribble on top with some of the texture, and then the light blues. Very happy with those two. On the bottom, there's a lot going on, and the bottom left is feeling kind of busy. And the bottom right, there's something about that light blue shape that looks kind of like a sickle that I'm not thrilled with, but it is still interesting. So I'm happy with that. And it does really, the texture in that bottom right, there's definitely a lot of texture that can be seen. And even the bottom left, I like the areas, the peekaboo areas of texture that you can see. Using that wood skewer to carve down a couple layers. And since this is oil paint underneath, it did allow me to carve down even through some of that. So all in all, I'm much happier with these as 4 small, unique paintings than I was when they were a whole, because it was too much of the same for me. I guess that's what I've been trying to say this whole time. But there's more variety in each of these smaller squares. And I really did like the effect. It shows it the most actually in the upper right. Oh, now the bottom right, where you can see the blue and the light blue blending into white. That softness that comes with the blending stump, I really enjoy that. So definitely not my typical process to start with oil paint, but it was really cool to use, and it gave me a whole different starting point to eventually make these 4 paintings. So let me know what you think. I hope you enjoy it. And if you're looking for part 1, I will link it in the description below. Thanks for watching.